The next thing we're going to talk about is Patriot CNC. And what we're going to look at specifically is what they refer to as their slim comp. Thing, just look at the mouth of that. And that's a 9, which is crazy. And their standard porting. And we're going to break these down and we're going to talk about them. The first time I saw a gun kind of ported in a similar manner, and I'm probably wrong with it. There's so much that goes on, and when we're training, it's like hard to keep up with how fast the industry is moving. But the one that I noticed first was Monsoon, and Monsoon will take the gun and they don't just port it, but they also tune it. One of the things that I love about this industry is everybody is kind of doing their own thing. Some things are kind of similar in nature sometimes, but I like the fact that the industry is constantly pushing forward, and it is in a very aggressive manner. But when I say aggressive, I mean that in a good way. So Patriot CNC, let's break this down. One of the first things that I really like is I have a bunch of old guns, and a lot of us, I mean, I'm 50, so a lot of us that are in this kind of genre own a lot of firearms, and they didn't back then come with optics on them, right? There weren't plates there like there are on the SIGs and the Glocks and a wide variety of the staccatos now. So as an example, this gun is an old STI. So, that kind of dates it right there. And the biggest thing for me is I like this gun. It's great. So not only does Patriot CNC do the porting, which this happens to be the slim comp, but they also do optic cuts. So it's really nice to be able to send your gun in, have somebody do an optic cut for you. And this is the 509T Hollow Sun, cut it and port it at the same time. So we're going to kind of break down why I kind of went this route specifically, and just kind of give you a little bit more background on it. One of the first things you'll see, I'm going to try to get this to where it zooms in and clears up on you. You'll see that right there's no rifling in that last little bit of the barrel. And this is to make sure that the gun remains very accurate. You can see the way it's ported here, the way the slide is configured and everything. This I really like. It keeps the gun the same length that it was. Yes, it moves the front sight back, but I'm just using it as a backup anyways, and I'm primarily running an optic. Each gun that Patriot CNC does is pretty much custom. And the reason why is tolerances on each gun, whether it's a STI staccato style of gun, or whether it's a Glock or a SIG or something like that, all those tolerances are going to be different. They also do a relief cut, and they do a taper that they believe is extremely important with that. And the end of the barrel is particularly important to them, and the way everything locks up. All that I can say is, after having my old guns, these two guns right now that I'm about to show you converted, I went back after, let's see, I think I did 6 classes in a row shooting those guns, and that's it. I just grabbed a bunch of guns that I have, and I'm like, oh, optic cuts and comps and ports and different styles of, like, let's go the gamut now. So as far as I'm concerned, the biggest thing for me is the reliability. I like the ejection. I like the fact that I can shoot it one-handed. I like the fact that I don't have to respring the gun. One of my favorite guns back in the day was a 17, either C or the 19C. Yeah, it only had 2 little ports on it, but the damn gun always runs, especially when you start getting dirt and you find yourself in more of an aggressive environment. That slide movement is extremely important. You want that gun to cycle, and having a good close to OEM, and that's one of the things that they do. They try to keep everything as close to OEM as possible, so you, the end user, can still have that reliability. So as I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of old guns that, some of which I want to port, some of which I just want to put dots on. I don't need them tuned. They already run really well, so I don't really want to screw with that. One of the first things that I look for when it comes to porting a gun is a couple things. First and foremost, I'm not so concerned about feeling no recoil. I'm more concerned about reliability, and that's what you should be too. I just need something to take the bark out just a little bit to give me a little bit more of an advantage to keep a little bit flatter gun. But when it comes to now changing springs from range loads to carry loads, when it comes to the ejection pattern, a lot of times we'll sit on a range and we'll watch people where the casings are dribbling out of guns that have, dual port comps on them, and the reliability goes down. Not only that, but in many cases, even with good factory ammo, we'll see people that as soon as they go one-handed, they start having major issues, even if they grip the gun pretty hard. A lot of times when I get a gun that has a comp on it, I want to really limp wrist it, just in case I can't squeeze it that hard for whatever reason. I want to make sure that the gun's still going to run and the gun's still going to cycle. So these are just some things that you should think about doing yourself when you get a gun ported, no matter what type of port system or comp it ends up having on it. So this is what the standard porting looks like. You'll notice it's almost like a hybrid. That's what it reminds me of. The size and the spacing, meaning the distance, really matters. Of course, that's what she said. Well, that wouldn't be distance, it would be length. But nevertheless, and girth. But I digress. The porting on this, I was a little skeptical of this. But I have a few older Salients that I've now, because they already run this normal top cut, that was factory, that top cut, so the ports just happen to line up perfectly with that. And I will say it makes a big difference. I like having a front sight on the gun. I'm not really a big fan nowadays with a rear sight. Me personally, I don't really feel like I need one. The optics have really gotten a lot more robust. This just happens to be an Aimpoint Acro. It's one of the first generations, so the battery, unfortunately doesn't last too long. You got to shut it off all the time, or you're not going to get too much out of it. But the cool thing is they will do cuts for the Acro, obviously cuts for the Holosun, cuts for the new Holosun EPS. So they've got a wide variety of things that they do. They also, don't just do optic cuts and porting. They also do mounts. This one just happens to be a 193 mount for the Ames, which is pretty nice, as you guys can see. They also do a whole assortment of things. I have a lot of their rail covers on my lever guns. So again, just something to think about. They got great lead times. They're good dudes. Check them out and see if there's something that you might like or fancy that they have.